Good morning, Trumptopia. This is your favorite robotic DJ and podcast talk show host, the incorrigible Mr. Zappo. In today's headlines, I'm literally bleary-eyedly looking at this. Someone had to write this. This is true. From National Geographic, breaking news. Alligators make terrible pets because, quote, you're basically dealing with a dinosaur. Ripped from the headlines, baby pet dinosaur, alligators, a story. If I only had the time and the staff required, I would be a media empire unto myself. But I don't, and I'm not, so here we are. Welcome back. It's Saturday, August 1st, and I left y'all hanging. I said one thing, and I did another. And that's because not 20 minutes after recording the last episode in real time of this podcast, live on the air, as it is, or as such as it works, within the next 20 minutes, half hour out from hitting end, my voice was just like, fuck you. And so I decided to not speak for a week. And I can't say I totally failed, though I dare not call it a critical success. But all efforts were seriously endeavored upon for the purposes of resting my voice and resetting, right? I'm going to start the show. I'm going to treat my voice better. I'm not going to record the show as if I was on stage yelling at the back of the house, which is a theater saying. If it doesn't make sense, go to a theater, then it'll make sense to you. Theater, it's important. Why are we letting it flounder? Episode, pin on the board. Although there's plenty of things to be doing social media activism or slacktivism as it were, about, I'm proud that in the chorus of other important things, the well-being of theater artists and professionals has not gone unspoken for, and that I'm not the lone crazy asshat saying, hey, care about your theater people, because they're suffering right now. Not only is theater one of those career paths that is tenuous to begin with, but also it is entirely contingent and reliant on the one thing medically most disinclined the humanity is currently, I missed that part, right? Humanity is currently most medically disinclined to participate in, which is that, large crowds. Duh. Unless, of course, you think it's all fake. Put a pin in that. I'm going to do an episode about that this afternoon. But good morning, Trumptopia. Are you still hitting the snooze button? Or Do you realize now that no matter what, if we set aside all of our ideological constructs and realize that we must, on multiple fronts, meet reality on reality's terms, not argue about the terms in which we think ideally reality should conduct itself, which is what they trick us into doing. That's what fighting about ideology is. Did the shoe drop? Did the coin hit the piggy bank? Ka-ching! The treadmill, my friends, is that precisely. Get them hooked on an ideology. Get them willing to blind faith defend it against all others. Make anyone who disagrees or fails to agree an evil, vile person. And we'll just laugh all the way to the bank. So here we are, and people are trying to keep living dinosaurs as pets. Meanwhile, nature's getting up in our faces. I was very confused this week. At some point, it's all a blur. And I sincerely, in case it wasn't obvious a moment ago, I deeply, sincerely apologize to anyone and everyone that's annoyed that I made it sound like I was going to do 2 or more episodes the other day and then didn't talk for a week. But I needed it. And thanks for your patience and endurance. And welcome to the unpredictable nature of reality and of my life and of this show. So, wow, what a cartoon place the world is at. People are having hard times keeping alligators as pets. Everything that is Tiger King already happened and has already been a Netflix phenom. Which, for the record, I don't know if I may be the last human on Earth or if there's a small community of us as of yet unnetworked. But I have yet to see a single sliver of Tiger King. Not once have I clicked on that clickbait of a show, that horror train wreck. Even though people I know in real life and on social media have enthusiastically encouraged me to just enjoy the wild ride of sensationalist, pseudo-documentarian human train wreck dumpster fire of a failed career and life that entertainment piece of reality TV is meant to be, it's just not my thing. Especially if I can already wrap my brain around what it must entail. And although there must be some surprises in there, I've seen a thing or two, and I've watched a thing or two, and I'm consuming plenty of content for the purposes of tilling the field. And I'm on a diet, because let me be frank, friends. I'm a creative that has yet to ever really quite strike it. I don't want to say rich, correct? Strike it right. Has really struck the funk in that good, wholesome, funky way. And I'm doing what I'm doing in part because I don't have anything else to do, right? The world has ended. This is some horrible dystopian cartoon Trump episode of my own cartoon, Trumptopia, which I maintain I may have been the first person on media to use that phrase. I know it's been used once or twice, although everyone seems to prefer probably their own alternative. Who is it? Some talking head on the Talking Headbox screen show of some flavor recently. And it was one where it was trying to sound Middle East. Trumpistan. And I'm like, It's like, okay. But it's like too blunt. It's too flat. But it also makes a lot of sense. But I digress. Trumptopia, my own original coining, thank you very much. If anybody else suddenly wants to make a Trumptopia movie, they have to pay me because I coined it. And they have to hire me as a consultant of like what Trumptopia is. Because I started writing about it first. I think. I could be wrong. But I'm not throwing that, cartoon Family Guy want to fight about it down yet. Because that's a serious gauntlet to throw down. If I am not incorrect in my word usage. But just testing the waters out there, because I do hope it becomes something, and I want it known that hey, yeah, that Mr. Zeppo guy, he coined that version of the word of what this empire of Trump's ego. That's what it means, right? Like, if there were an empire based on Trump, what should it be called? And in the world of my literature, it is and has always been called Trumptopia since the day he rode down that golden escalator. Like, for sure, I had already coined that term that day. Probably a few days prior. Because I've been tinkering with many ideas all at once. Hello, and welcome to the complete logorrhea of the mouth, disarray, chaos show that is my talk show. It's a talk show in which I talk in circles. No, not quite right. Spirals. And in which, by following me along those paths of jibber-jabber, I might plant some seeds, rattle some cages, provoke some thinking, and totally always welcome your response, as long as it's civil and about trying to contribute, not just destroy, right? Because we want to public discourse. There must be a purpose for it besides a media market of idiots like me listening to ourselves talk. And if it is just that, bless it. Thank God there's a market, because maybe someday I too can grow up to be like the Phil Donahue of my generation. Look that guy up. Although it's kind of cheesy and dated and very much has a thumbprint of its own era and that era's quirkinesses. It's also the media I was consuming at the time and the kind of content that I thought I could see myself doing that, right? As a young whippersnapper robot from the future, I imagined myself being able to someday achieve that. And I'm just rambling and spiraling out of control. What was I trying to say? The Muppets. No. For some reason, the Muppets are doing a thing, and they're on my news panel. But then again, so are other weird people. Thoughts and prayers out to the entire, other south by whatever direction it is, corner of the continent. Dear Florida, I feel like California and Florida are both armpit states. Like, we are the armpits of America, somehow or another. And for different reasons and in different ways. But I digress. They're going through some shit time, not the least of which is all of the COVID-19 stuff set aside, which side of the divide you reside. But boom, man, it's like I'm a wordsmith, and I didn't even know it. But they're getting pummeled, or they might be about to get pummeled. I haven't checked into. I just literally woke up and did the one thing I haven't done for the past, like, what feels like a year. Time is relative, folks. Let me report to breaking news. Time really is relative, and it will dilate and distort on you depending on how you focus on it, because it doesn't exist. It's a byproduct. It's a convergent phenomena that is experienced because of the way everything else works. But let's not get lost down that rabbit hole. So, what a strange week it's been, folks. Forgive me for not having been there on the daily as originally intended. But here's the fun fact of it. I totally got up today after spending a week in sort of pseudo-spiritual silence and failed to do this show with any proper, like, legit vocal warm-up routine, which was, like, issue number 1. I've been talking my voice into the grave for however long I've been doing this show, because I think maybe a grand total of 4 times in 3 years have I ever even pretended to almost do a proper, like, theatrical vocal warm-up in anticipation of presenting the show. And I just did that now. So, bad, Mr. Zeppo. Bad, puppy dog. But I was also feeling quite driven by that wordless driving place. So I'm at the right place at the right time. And all niceties having been expressed, and I mean it sincerely and from the bottom, the cockles of my heart, which sounds funny but means the most sincerest, genuine, deep place, the beating yin-yang at the center of my blood pump organ. Metaphorically, not literally. Although maybe also literally, because energetically that's probably where it all emanates from anyways. That's where the cockles are, as a literary device. And from the pit of hell and heaven that is those 2 cockles of my heart, beating and pulsating and emanating electromagnetic toroidal energy patterns, and broadcasting peace, love, and grooviness at you folks, because we are all, you and I and every last incipient, boring, tedious, lazy, or brilliant, genius, inspiring, powerful, and everything in between, mother-loving meat sacks that we are, inhabited by spirit. We are all, each of us, in our own limited or well-connected ways, broadcast antennas of energy frequencies, right? What did you think I was going to say, folks? We are, each and every single one of us, every last motherfucker on this species-wide species of the human species inclusion, we are transducers in that we simultaneously, whether we realize it or not, emit and receive. We simultaneously, just like you take it for granted that you perceive the world around you, right? If you can see, you take your sight for granted. If you can hear, you take your hearing for granted. If you can taste, touch, and smell, you take those for granted until they're threatened or taken away, right? Or damaged somehow, bodily. Let's confront that. Those are the kinds of blinders, the phenomenological consciousness blinders that we have conditioned ourselves to put onto ourselves as part and parcel of the sort of silly-ass way that we cope with being here, dare I say, in this thing we call reality, which we constantly disabuse and neglect by categorically miscategorizing it. Why am I sharing this thought? Because A, free speech, it's my show, it's Saturday, I haven't talked to you for a week, and I just wanted to remind you, in case you forgot, that's where I begin and end the whole process, right? That's where I anchor everything else that I think about and or do as a contributor as little known as I may be, although my numbers seem to be perking up. Keep it up, audience. Keep those numbers getting perkier and perkier. And help me figure out what I need to do different besides actually doing vocal warm-ups, which I pledged to you. Oh, I hate doing that to myself. I just painted myself into a corner. I'm making a blank global pledge anonymously as a fictional character embedded inside multiple literary references within different books in a real life podcast to whoever the fuck is listening. And I don't even know who you motherfuckers are. Are you a bunch of people that I know, or are you a bunch of people that I don't know? It's probably a mix of both, since actually I haven't looked at that in ages, but we'll skip it for today because I've already been rambling for quite a bit. So all of that is true, and I mean it sincerely. I also don't remember where I was going with it. Life. It is truly an enigma wrapped inside a mystery, wrapped inside a clusterfuck, wrapped inside of insight. And we are living through some strange, bizarre times. And we are living through strange, bizarre times while simultaneously torturing ourselves as a species by radically, thoughtlessly coercing ourselves into neglecting this entire portion of the bandwidth in which we reside and exist. It's like we are multidimensional energy beings that occupy time-space through these, like, body gloves we call ourselves, our bodies. But we're so much more. And we just ignore that, rendering it unhelpful when it could be very, very helpful to be deeply connected to and aware of that whole portion of our being. My new favoriteest meme of all time, which I wish I had created, but I did not. I'm always proud and jealous of other people's meme work. I don't know who actually created this, but there is a name/Instagram account, I think, tagged at the bottom where I would normally put my for this meme, and it's Raminazer, Raminnazer. But it's a drawing that's divided, split right down the middle. And on the left side, looking at it, is like ordinary nature, right? Hills, beautiful sky and clouds. And on the right side is bizarre rainbow-colored outlines of things in space, giving you a cosmic vibe. And there's a figure, a person, like a cartoon person, sitting in like meditative pose, just an outline person, right? And the flesh side is just a black and white outline figure, and the cosmic side is like chakra, rainbow, bandwidth, energy wiggle lines in the shape of a person. And the fleshy person is saying in a speech bubble, because their mouth is open, I want to be my full 8-dimensional self. And so now we've named it, right? And the 8-dimensional self is rebutting almost simultaneously, but that self wanted to be human. So, and I love that so right down the middle, everything is cut in half. But instead of a straight line, it's a wiggly, wavy, undulating, wiggly line. And that shit is so apropos. Yo, my friends, my dear, dear strangers who listen to me ramble for who knows what reason, that shit is true in a figurative way. Like, that is literally and figuratively true in so many ways and in so many directions. And at the center of every iteration of our self-being, it's multiplex self. Because you are your own universe of yous, coexisting and cohabitating and co-manifesting all the different Schrodinger's paths of context you could have pathed through, if I could conjugate path into a verb. If I can take such liberties with your libertine language, for I do verily do adore some alliteration when it flows naturally, trippingly upon the tongue, as Shakespeare said. What an interesting place. I was rambling very inarticulately recently about the strange trajectories I'm seeing, the strange choices being made in my presence, in my awareness field, vis-a-vis social media, by those who, as they represent themselves in the limited slice o' life way that social media allows us to, as spiritual folk, spiritual tribe people who are about love and frequency and about understanding the universe through understanding one's own inner experience, as well as a deep comprehension of what's going on around us, who then choose, for lack of a better way of expressing it, the dark side, and want to engage in or seem to be supporting some expression of revolutionary violence. And I say this in the broadest of strokes, and I'm not trying to call anybody out, right? My show's not about that. My show is about the ideas, the seeds themselves that we see people peddling, and that I myself, right? What am I doing? Why do I put an effort into, when I could be blissfully disengaged and never dealing with the stress load that is the cacophony of echo chambers, and there are many, for everyone calling someone or the world sheeple, there really should be those standing up and identifying the parrot people, or there's no good parrot, there's no P, it just becomes people, because they both start with P. And you can't just add arret in the middle of people. It's got to be parrot people. There isn't a sheepling of parrot people. People, pareeple. It becomes pareeple. And parrot people. You have to just say the whole thing. Damn it. I hate having these arguments with myself. But when words fail, what else are you to do live on the air? The sheeple and the parrot people and all the other echo chambers of ego trap, for lack of a better term. Not that I am not a guru or making any claims beyond that which are real and genuine in my life. And I've been through some weird shit, but I've also, by most people's standards, my life is mostly on the very boring side of the spectrum of things and events that could happen to you. And the collection of, or the series of events in my life that could point to more exciting content are relatively limited. But I genuinely and authentically agree when I see other people expressing, especially astutely as concisely as this meme. That's why I was just like, I'm just going to lay this out on my Instagram as a whole loop onto itself. You know, in the app, each row of pictures is 3 images long. And to me, that sometimes I consider that like a sentence, right? It's a building block of Instagram language. If one could say that visually, not that I do a very good job because I fail at it. The way I fail at keeping my episodes tight and concise, the way John Oliver does. I am the antithesis of John Oliver, but I look up to and admire what he does because he's ravenously accurate. I just made up a phrase that makes no sense. He's hungry for facts. The guy doesn't just give you his opinion. He goes, this is why this is dumb, right? Boom, 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 boom. And in that span of kapow, 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 it's like this barrage of things you can verify and funniness. And of course, his show is once a week and well scripted, like tightly scripted. And I'm not criticizing that. That's just a different thing than what I'm doing. I'm authentically and genuinely giving you my mind on a platter for the purposes of sharing, and not all of it, mind you. You know, I believe in free speech, and I also believe in the coexistence of authentic and genuine privacy, and that's as important of a human right as anything else, right? Of course, everyone can disagree about what God-given human rights are, and we clearly do all the time because we can never seem to rally around who and what and when and where, by whom and against whom human rights violations are about. But, yeah, if you have not been paying close attention to Trumptopian activities behind the orange curtain that is the imaginary line made up by the conceptualization of ownership within those boundaries of this place we call America, or obviously now like a 60-40 transition into Trumptopia. I don't think it's 100%. And I don't think we get there in this particular life cycle of politics. I have a whole theory about America truly, genuinely becoming Trumptopia, but I'm trying to sell that as sci-fi short stories here, so I can't give it all away on the podcast, right? But stay tuned for some new content there. I think I might have finally just exhausted myself on writer's block, which, for the record, hit me cripplingly in January, late January. So even before we got into official lockdown and the inability to work by no fault of my own, I was already staring at blank pages and longing to be a Stephen King-like-esque channel for words to flow onto the page and failing at it in a way that was painful in, I don't know, that maybe if you don't give a shit about writing, you could never take very seriously, but that really, really hurt. Like, it was painful to me. And it just got worse. But I digress. The point is, I feel differently now, and I'm happy to report that. I'm not going to make promises like I was just self-alerting. Like, don't put yourself into a corner and promise things that you don't deliver, because then no one, people stop giving a fuck. Just start doing the things and let it build on its own. So it was strange to me to have chosen to choose to not go on the air for a week, but this situation, this culmination of my voice locking up, and the first day it happened, it felt like, you ever go to Knott's Berry Farm and just have a little bit too much fun and get a little bit too enthusiastic and like yell too much and not pay enough attention, and then by the end of the day you're like, I have to whisper or else I've got to write it down on a piece of paper because these vocal cords do not want to. And whispering's really bad. I shouldn't be doing it because it aggravates the vocal cords. That's what it felt like. And as a performer, as a person trying to run a podcast, and as generally speaking, a guy who loves to talk, which may or may not be a good thing, this has happened to me on more than one occasion. I'm not unfamiliar with it. I have friends, who studied vocal techniques in singing and in elocution and whatnot, who freak out about that sort of thing and would probably have an earful of advice to share at me about it. But that was the dilemma. And for some people that's laughable and not very serious. But I genuinely and authentically wanted to give it a moment of airtime because it was difficult, man. And it physically hurt. Like, it hurt my throat to do that to myself. And it hurt my soul. It hurt my creative soul. And it made the last few days a blurry mess because I was literally consciously making a very concerted effort to not speak. And I lost count of how many days, but it's been about a week, I believe. Maybe a little less than. But it's good to be back. And what the fuck are we doing with this craziness? Because from Japan going through an official second wave to, Trump contemplating postponing the election the way China just did to Hong Kong. Or, is that right? Is that the right name of the town? Yeah. And everything in between, I don't think I would have been able to keep up. I definitely was sort of keeping an eye on the news, dealing with insomnia, and a series of other concerns in real life, whilst trying to maintain or adhere to a very sort of severely limited use of my voice. And why am I rambling about that? Because it feels weird to be back on the air, and because I intend fully to instill a new discipline in how I approach talking on the air and getting ready to talk on the air. And I fully intend to change the bad habits that I, despite having helped, my voice recover, I don't think I really fully, completely addressed all of the little tiny, because, the nerdy part of my brain that remembers that education in theater knows and can come up with an endlessly long, ever-growing list of things that I shouldn't be doing. It's a it's a strange thing to me, but I have the very serious concern that shit's just gonna get crazier between now and like Halloween. right? And that's between now and basically election day. And that's just 95 days away, folks. So much to talk about, so much to get through. Thank you for indulging in letting me just ramble at you for 40 minutes and 24 seconds. And we're going to leave you with a bit of music to take the show out. And we'll be back, hopefully for reals, knock on wood. That was plastic. There's some wood. For reals this time, later today, after doing some serious vocal warm-ups. And I'm probably going to delete this episode because I feel like I lost complete and total control of it somewhere in the middle. I don't know that anybody would give a shit about listening to whatever the fuck I just rambled about. And that's my problem. I'm really, really self-aware about the limitations of this show. So if you sort of appreciate what I'm trying to do, and you want to help, and you can bankroll this, please email me at theincorrigiblemrzeppo@gmail.com. Serious inquiries only, folks. Don't fuck around with that email. I'll just delete you if you just waste my time. And I'm probably just inviting a bunch of scam emails from, foreign countries. But hopefully, as the audience grows, so will its diversity in individuals listening. And welcome to the chaos. There's a lot of things on the board, and that's that wasn't a throwaway line. So as you brace yourself for the onslaught of new episodes, and if you haven't caught up with some of the more recent ones, please do. And also, take a dip in some of the earliest ones, etc. Jump around. Visit some of the themed ones, like go listen to unauthorized explicit readings, etc. And as always, humbly, I thank you. May peace, love, and grooviness blossom in your heart.